My name is Julianne Reyes. I'm 38 years old, a professor of marketing at North Bay University, nestled in the heart of Portland, Oregon. To most people, my life looked enviable. A tenured position at a respected school, a modern home in the hills, weekend getaways to the coast, and a husband, Derek, who always had a glass of wine waiting when I walked in the door. We had been married 14 years, solid, functional, predictable. People called us the Reyes Rock, like that was something to be proud of. But beneath the polished sheen, I'd felt something softening. Quiet moments stretching longer, fewer conversations, polite kisses that felt like habit. That Thursday night, Derek was in the shower. The sound of water masked the silence in our bedroom. I was curled up with a journal, jotting down lecture notes for next week's consumer behavior class. That's when I heard it. A soft ping. His phone lit up on the nightstand. I glanced without thinking, then froze. Reservation confirmed for 2, rooftop, Friday 8 p.m. He'll love the view. A. The message glared back like a knife with no handle. I stared, blinked. My brain fumbled for rational explanations. A dinner meeting? A client? A surprise for me? Except it wasn't addressed to me. And I'd never heard of A. I've never been the kind of woman who checks her husband's phone, not because I'm naive, but because I believe in trust like a religion. But when betrayal seeps into your skin, your body reacts before your heart has time to rationalize. I picked up his phone. My fingers moved on their own. The passcode was still our anniversary, 0521, 4 digits that once felt like a promise. The screen opened, and then the illusion fell apart. There she was, Amber Cole, pretty, smiling, blonde. Her name sat at the top of a stream of messages that stretched back nearly a year. I scrolled. Messages about their favorite drinks, in-jokes, pet names, can't wait to see you Friday, and still thinking about Santa Fe, photos, so many photos. One caught my eye. Amber in a hotel robe, kissing Derek's cheek as he grinned like a teenager. The timestamp? During last month's firm retreat. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the air had been yanked out of the room and replaced with static. I heard the water shut off, footsteps, my whole body tensed like glass before a fall. Hey, have you seen my charcoal tie? Derek's voice called casually from the bathroom. I placed the phone back exactly where it was, shut the screen, covered the wreckage with stillness. Second drawer, I replied, voice flat. That night I lay next to him in bed, my back turned, my eyes open, my body stiff as stone. He slept. Easily. I didn't blink for hours. I kept thinking about the perfume I couldn't name on his shirt last week, the sudden work trips, the evasive way he smiled when I asked how his day had gone. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't dramatic, I was right, and I was done pretending. The next morning, I made coffee, kissed him goodbye, told him, "Good luck with the compliance meeting today." He smiled, kissed my cheek, and walked out the door, completely unaware. By the time his car disappeared down the street, I had already picked up my phone. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to plan. I didn't cry that morning. Instead, I sat in my kitchen, staring at a mug of coffee gone cold, watching the steam curl into nothing. There's a strange clarity that comes with betrayal, like someone suddenly cleaned a foggy mirror. You see everything for what it is. You see yourself. And I saw a woman who had spent 14 years being loyal to a man who wasn't even loyal to the version of me he claimed to love. I picked up my phone and called the HR department at North Bay University. "Hi, this is Professor Reyes. I'd like to request a short leave, just 3 days." "Of course, Professor. Is everything all right?" "I just need time to think," I said. And I did. Not to grieve, but to prepare. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new browser window. I typed in her name, Amber Cole. I knew she worked in public relations at Derek's consulting firm. It took less than 2 minutes to find her LinkedIn profile. Blonde hair, white teeth. Bio full of buzzwords like media synergy and internal brand narratives. And then I found him. Grayson Cole, her husband, former Marine. now CEO of a private security company in Bend called Iron Trace Solutions. His company focused on corporate safety infrastructure and crisis response training. His profile photo was striking, clean-cut, stoic, but with kind eyes. I didn't know him, but I knew what betrayal felt like, and I figured he should know too. Of course, I couldn't just call him up and say, "Hey, your wife is sneaking around with mine." No, I needed subtlety, precision, legitimacy. So I crafted an email. Subject: Guest Speaker Invitation, North Bay University Leadership Series. Dear Mr. Cole, my name is Dr. Julianne Reyes, and I currently teach in the Business and Marketing Department at North Bay University. We are curating a speaker series focused on leadership under pressure and saw your recent panel on tactical resilience in corporate environments. I'd be honored to meet and discuss the possibility of having you as a guest speaker for one of our upcoming seminars. I've reserved a table at Vireo Restaurant this Friday evening at 8 p.m. to talk more in person. Looking forward to meeting you. Sincerely, Dr. Julianne Reyes, North Bay University. I read it 3 times. No typos. Professional. Cordial. Completely plausible. And then I hit send. Less than 2 hours later, his reply landed in my inbox. Julianne, thank you for the invitation. I'd be happy to meet and discuss. Friday at 8 p.m. at Vireo works perfectly. Best, Grayson Cole. I stared at the screen. My heartbeat thudded in my throat. He didn't know yet. But he would. Not through fury, through clarity. I reached for my phone again, dialing the hostess desk at Vireo, a luxury rooftop restaurant in downtown Portland, famous for its skyline views and discreet privacy. Good evening, a woman answered sweetly. How may I assist you? Yes, I'd like to reserve a table for 2. Friday at 8 p.m., preferably near the rooftop edge with a view. Let me check. Yes, we have one available. Any other requests? If it's possible, I said, keeping my voice smooth, please seat us near a reservation under the name Derek Hudson. I believe they're colleagues. We'd like to be nearby for introductions. A partial lie, a strategic one. Certainly, ma'am, she replied. You'll be seated next to them. Thank you, I said, a small smile forming on my lips, one she couldn't see. I hung up. The pieces were in place. No yelling, no chaos. No screaming in the kitchen with plates smashing on the floor. Just silence. Candles, and a truth delivered with precision. Let him enjoy his carefully planned date with Amber. Because this time, I had a plan too. Friday evening arrived like the final breath before a storm. The city was slick from rain, the pavement reflecting headlights like pools of melted glass. I stood in front of my full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. I wore a sleek black midi dress, form-fitting but not flashy. My hair was pulled into a low twist at the nape of my neck, and my makeup was deliberate, subtle enough to seem effortless, bold enough to say I see everything now. The earrings? Silver teardrops, gifts from Derek on our 10th anniversary. He once said they were a little too sharp-looking for dinner. Fitting. I slipped on champagne-colored heels and picked up my clutch. Inside was nothing but lip balm and resolve. The drive to Vireo was quiet. Classical music hummed on the radio, but I wasn't really listening. My mind had already arrived. I'd imagined this night over and over, not out of revenge, but because I needed to see his face when the lie unraveled. When I stepped into the restaurant, the hostess smiled warmly. Welcome to Vireo. Do you have a reservation? Yes, Reyes. Table for 2 at 8. Of course, she said, checking the screen. You'll be seated near Mr. Hudson's party as requested. Perfect. I followed her past the glimmering main floor, past polished tables and murmured laughter, until we reached the rooftop edge. The city glittered around us. Portland's skyline stretched like a promise I hadn't believed in for years. This way. She pulled out a chair for me at a 2-top table, just steps away from the next. The table that would belong, in just a few minutes, to Derek and Amber. I sat. Adjusted my napkin. Ordered a dry martini and tried to calm the humming tension inside my chest. I didn't feel nervous. I felt like a wire pulled taut. Then, 5 minutes early, he arrived. Dr. Reyes? A voice asked behind me. I turned. There he was, Grayson Cole. He wore a fitted charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled at the forearms, a navy blazer over his arm. Tall, clean-cut, eyes clear but tired, like he hadn't slept well in days, or like the world had been quietly disappointing him for years. I'm really glad you came, I said, standing to shake his hand. Thank you for accepting on short notice. The topic intrigued me, he said with a polite smile. Leadership under stress. It's something I know too well. We both sat. I could see the empty table beside us being polished one last time, candles lit. A bottle of wine, pre-ordered, was already placed in a bucket. Chilling. Amber's favorite, probably. Something fruity and expensive. Grayson and I began to chat about his company, Iron Trace, his background and tactical response, how teaching seminars wasn't part of his usual week. I nodded, asked smart questions, smiled in all the right places, but I wasn't fully there, because at 8:02 they arrived. Derek and Amber. He was wearing the gray jacket I bought him last Christmas. She was in a navy dress that clung to her like intention. Her hand was on his arm as she laughed. My stomach twisted, but I didn't flinch. I watched as they were seated. Derek faced away from us. Amber faced me. She hadn't seen me yet. Not yet. I turned back to Grayson and picked up my martini. And waited. Waited for Truth to take a seat at the table. Grayson was telling me about a project his firm completed for a tech campus in Beaverton, something about layered security design and staff psychology. But I barely heard a word. Because 10 feet away, Amber had just locked eyes with me, her smile faltered. She blinked, tilted her head slightly, as if trying to decide if she was imagining me. But the slow flush rising up her neck said she wasn't. And then Derek turned. It was like watching a live wire snap. His jaw tensed first. Then the color drained from his face. He dropped his napkin, trying to stand, but froze when he saw Grayson sitting across from me. His mind was racing. I could see it in his eyes. Why is she here? How does she know? Who is that man? I kept my expression calm, like a professor during a pop quiz. I leaned slightly toward Grayson and said, Would you mind if I excused myself for just a moment? I need to use the ladies' room. Of course, he replied, ever polite. I'll be here. I stood up, smoothed the front of my dress, and walked away from the table. Not toward the restroom, but toward the soft lighting near the stairs. Just as I turned the corner, Amber followed me. Julianne, she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. What? What are you doing here? I tilted my head and offered a small, almost amused smile. Enjoying dinner, like you. This isn't. How much do you know? Oh, I said softly. Enough to ruin your whole career if I wanted to. She stepped back. Please, not here. Let's not make a scene. Why not? I asked, still calm. Isn't this what you wanted? Wine, candlelight, rooftop view? You just didn't expect an audience. Amber's mouth opened, but no words came. You've been having an affair with my husband for nearly a year, I continued, my voice still low. And sitting less than 10 feet away is your husband, Grayson, who doesn't know a damn thing. Her lip trembled. Julianne, please. Why don't we stop pretending? I said, my tone sharpening. You want to live in secret? Fine. But secrets rot everything they touch. And tonight, I brought disinfectant. She turned to flee, but Derek had already appeared behind her, his face pale, his steps hesitant. Julianne, what is this? I looked at him, at the man who once traced the freckles on my shoulders like they were constellations, and I said, loud enough for both of them to hear, Grayson, could you come here for a moment? Behind me, I heard his chair move, then footsteps approach. Grayson appeared beside me, concerned. Is everything all right? I turned to him and took a breath. Grayson, this is Amber, your wife. He blinked. What? And this, I continued, gesturing toward Derek, is my husband, or he was. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Amber gasped. Derek staggered back half a step. Grayson's expression didn't change at first. It just held frozen, then slowly cracked with disbelief. I looked at him with nothing but calm and finality. You deserve to know who she's having dinner with. For a long second, no one moved. Amber stood frozen, one trembling hand near her mouth, eyes darting between Grayson and Derek like a child caught shoplifting. Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. Whatever script he'd rehearsed for the moment he got caught clearly didn't survive reality. And Grayson, he didn't shout, he didn't step back. He just stared at his wife, a man trying to fit puzzle pieces into an image that no longer made sense. "What is this?" he finally asked, voice low and even. "Some kind of misunderstanding?" Amber's voice cracked. "Grayson, I was going to tell you, I swear, it wasn't supposed to be like this." "Not like this," I said coolly. "As in, not in front of everyone?" Derek's eyes found mine, pleading. "Julianne, please, can we just talk? Privately?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean like the private conversations you've been having with her for months? Or the private hotel bookings? Or the private jokes I wasn't part of anymore?" A nearby waiter approached, sensing the tension in the air. "Is everything okay, ma'am?" I turned to him and said with absolute clarity, "We'd like to move to a private room, please. Something quieter. There's a conversation the four of us need to finish." He blinked, then nodded. "Of course. I'll prepare one immediately." 10 minutes later, we were seated around a square table in a glass-walled room, candles flickering, music faint behind the closed doors. No one spoke. I sat beside Grayson. Amber and Derek sat opposite, both looking like they'd swallowed nails. I poured myself a glass of water, broke the silence. "Start," I said, without looking up. "Tell him the truth." Amber's voice was barely audible. "It started at the retreat in Bend, last spring. We were working late on the branding project, and it just happened." I scoffed. "Nothing just happens, Amber. Affairs don't fall out of the sky like rain." Grayson leaned forward, hands on the table, voice cold. "So this whole time, when you said you were too tired to go out, or needed space, or wanted to reconnect with yourself, this is what you meant?" "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "You did," he said flatly. "Every day you kept lying." Derek turned to me. "Julianne, I messed up. I know that. I lost control. You didn't lose control," I cut in. "You had every opportunity to stop. Every text, every dinner, every time you snuck out for a meeting. Those were all choices. And now I'm making mine." I reached into my clutch and placed a hotel keycard on the table. "I've booked a room across the river. I'll be staying there tonight. Tomorrow I'll begin the process of removing your name from everything I can." Derek reached for my hand. I pulled away. "Don't!" Amber wiped her eyes, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Grayson hadn't moved. He looked not angry, just exhausted. Like a soldier who'd just realized the war wasn't over. It had only ever been hidden. I turned to him. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." He nodded slowly. "No, I'm glad I did. At least I don't have to live in a lie anymore." I stood, adjusted my dress. "To both of you," I said, glancing at Derek and Amber. "May you enjoy each other now without the thrill of secrecy, because after tonight, all that's left is reality." And with that, I walked out of the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I walked out of Vireo with steady steps, the sound of my heels echoing against the stone tiles of the rooftop landing. The Portland air was crisp, the sky cloudy, but still faintly glowing from city lights. It was the kind of night built for soft music and quiet endings. But not the kind Derek and Amber were hoping for. The hotel was only 4 blocks away, a boutique place called the High Line, known for its views of the river and minimalist comfort. I checked in without a word, nodded politely, when the front desk clerk handed me my keycard. Room 905, ninth floor, river view. When I closed the door behind me, I slipped off my heels, walked straight to the window, and stood there. Below, headlights glided across the bridges. Boats passed slowly in the distance. And my reflection in the window stared back, alone, tired, but not broken. Then, the grief came. Not the elegant kind you see in movies. The real kind. Violent, choking, undignified. I curled into a chair and sobbed into a pillow until my throat burned. I cried for 14 years of loyalty, for the woman I used to be, for every Friday night spent alone with a glass of wine while Derek wrapped up at work. I cried for the truth, for the time I couldn't get back. I don't know how long I sat there, just that when the knock came, my eyes were raw, and I still held the pillow like a shield. I stood slowly, moved to the door, peeked through the peephole. Grayson. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, his hair tousled by the wind. His eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but his jaw was firm. I opened the door just enough for my voice to slip through. Grayson? I'm sorry to drop by. I didn't know where else to go. I paused, then opened the door wider. Come in. We sat side by side in the small lounge area, a soft lamp casting amber light over the room. Neither of us said anything at first. The silence was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Finally, Grayson spoke. I still don't understand how you sat through that dinner like nothing was wrong. I gave a small, tired laugh. I didn't sit still. I waited. Some truths lose their weight if you let someone else speak them. He nodded slowly. You're braver than I am. No, I said. Just more. Prepared to stop lying to myself. We talked for a while. About Amber, about Derek, about how trust isn't broken in a moment, but chipped away one excuse at a time. Grayson told me how Amber had once been his biggest fan, how she used to say he inspired her. And then one day, he said, I became the background noise in her life. I told him about the way Derek used to kiss my shoulder while I made coffee, how he stopped about a year ago, and how I pretended not to notice. Eventually, he stood. I'm staying one floor below, he said, nodding toward the keycard in his hand. I just didn't want to go to sleep tonight, thinking I was the only one who felt like their world cracked open. You're not, I said. He hesitated at the door. If you need a friend to get through this, I'm around. Thank you, I said. Honestly, you understood me better in one night than my husband did in a decade. He gave me a tired smile, then walked out into the hallway. I watched his silhouette fade into the dim corridor light, and for the first time in years, I felt something lift from my shoulders. Not hope, not yet, but maybe. The beginning of space where it could grow. The next morning, Portland was still wrapped in fog. I checked out of the High Line with no makeup on, hair loosely tied, wearing an oversized sweater I'd thrown into my overnight bag, more for comfort than confidence, and yet I felt calm, not strong, not heroic, just clear. I returned to the house Derek and I had shared for 14 years, not to stay, to collect what remained of my life, the one that was truly mine. When I walked in, Derek was sitting on the couch, unshaven, still in the clothes from last night. His tie was gone, buttons half undone. He looked up at me like a man waiting for a verdict. Julianne. He stood. Please, we need to talk. I'm listening. I know I messed up, he said. His voice cracked like it had been rehearsed 100 times overnight. I know I betrayed you, but we can fix this. Counseling. I'll cut off all contact with Amber. I told her last night. I told her it's over. She already left, I said. He blinked. What? Packed up. Quit the firm. Moved out of the apartment. Her coworker told me this morning. Derek sank back onto the couch, burying his head in his hands. You told people? Not for revenge, I said. For the truth. I called your mother. Jenna. Even your college buddies you always tried to impress. I told them exactly what happened, That my husband had a year-long affair while I sat at home boiling pasta and waiting for him to remember he had a wife. His shoulders shook. "You've destroyed me." "No," I said. "You destroyed yourself. I just stopped shielding you from the fallout." He stood up, reaching for my hand. "Julianne, please. I love you. I swear to God I do. I lost my way, but I can come back." I stepped away. "You can't fix a house when the rot is in the foundation." "Don't throw us away," he begged. "Don't throw away 14 years." "I'm not," I said. "You did that one text at a time." He collapsed into the armchair, eyes red. "She meant nothing." "She meant something every time you looked at her like I used to matter." Silence stretched. Then I added, "I used to be the woman who forgave too easily, who thought loyalty meant staying even when respect was gone. But I've learned, forgiveness can be a betrayal of yourself." I picked up the last box of my things and turned toward the door. Derek didn't try to stop me this time. The following days, he sent everything: emails, flowers, voicemails, even a handwritten letter that smelled faintly of his cologne. I read none of it. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. The divorce was filed the next week. 3 days later, a friend texted me a photo. Derek and Amber sitting at a rundown cafe in the suburbs, both looking hollow and exhausted. 2 days after that, I received his final message. "I tried to move on with her, but she doesn't smile at me anymore. And I don't see you in her eyes." I didn't reply. And I never would. Because some closures don't come in conversations. They come in silence. Spring came early that year. I noticed it one Saturday morning when golden light spilled through the wide windows of my new apartment. The hardwood floors glowed. My books sat neatly on fresh white shelves. A new basil plant thrived in the windowsill. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, brewing coffee. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting on anyone to come home. Then my phone buzzed. "Grayson, coffee at Tanner's?" I glanced at the clock, 9:12 a.m. I smiled. "Give me 15 minutes." Since that night at Vireo, Grayson and I had kept in touch. It began with polite texts, then shared check-ins, then regular weekend meetups. No pressure, no expectations, just two people trying to navigate the wreckage with something like grace. That morning, I walked into Tanner's Cafe and found him at our usual corner booth, a notebook open, 2 lattes waiting. "You remembered," I said, sliding into the seat. He smiled. "Half oat milk, half whole. You're not easy to forget." I laughed, not the brittle kind I'd used for years, but real. "How have you been?" I asked. He leaned back, nodding slowly. "Divorce finalized last week. Amber didn't say much, just a note that said, 'Sorry for making you lose faith in love.'" I looked at him. "And did you?" He held my gaze. "Nasi," then answered softly, "No. I'm learning to believe again. Not in promises, in actions, quiet ones." That silenced me, in a good way. The months that followed unfolded with rare peace. I returned to campus, took a weekend photography course just for fun, and rediscovered things I'd buried beneath domestic obligation. Grayson began speaking at my seminars. He never missed one. Sometimes we grabbed dinner after. Sometimes we didn't. There was no next step looming. Just truth and space and time. One evening, we sat on my small balcony, sharing pizza out of the box as the city lights flickered below. "Do you think we're changing?" I asked. He looked at me thoughtfully. "No. I think we're finally returning to who we were before we compromised too much." I didn't say anything. His words had already answered more than I expected. Then, one early summer night, we walked along the riverside after a jazz concert. Grayson stopped near a quiet bench, looking serious. "Julianne," he said, "I'm not in a rush. I'm not asking for a title or a label. But if you ever want to try again, not marriage, just something real, I'm ready." I looked at him, at the man who didn't beg or perform or try to cover truth with charm. "I'm not ready to love the old way," I said honestly. "But if love means friendship first, sharing everything, hiding nothing, maybe I've already started." He didn't answer. He just took my hand, and for the first time in years, I let someone hold it without fear of being erased. 1 year after the dinner at Vareo, I received an invitation to Professor Hallström's retirement banquet, my old mentor and PhD advisor. The event was held at the Altoir Hotel, elegant and understated, just like her. I arrived early, wearing a navy silk dress and my mother's vintage pearl earrings. I carried a first edition book Hallström once mentioned in a lecture, wrapped in gold tissue. The last thing I expected was to see Derek. He stood near the wine table, thinner now, a touch of gray at the temples, polished, still, but missing the spark he once wielded so easily. When he turned and saw me, we both paused. He walked over, wineglass in hand. "Julianne," he said softly, "didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to see you either," I replied, voice even. He gave a faint smile. "Professor Hallström is the last one from that world who still talks to me." "She always believed people could change," I said. He nodded. "She was right. I owe you a real apology, not for closure, for truth." After everything blew up, I realized how much I had hollowed myself out, trying to be admired while forgetting how to be decent. I listened. No anger, no nostalgia, just a strange peace. "I hope you find your way," I said. He looked at me long and slow. "And you? Are you okay?" "Yes," I said, without a single flicker of doubt. "I'm rebuilding on my own terms now." Just then, Grayson stepped into the room, wearing a charcoal jacket. He spotted me, smiled, and walked over. A quiet kind of presence, not claiming, not performing, just steady. Derek followed my gaze and nodded slowly. "He's a good man." I placed my hand over my heart, once shattered, now whole. "Thank you," I said. "And you? Start again, Derek. But only when you're ready not to hurt anyone else." He stepped back, and I walked forward. That evening, Grayson and I chatted with friends, shared a slow dance under golden lights, and when we left, I held his hand gently. No performance, no fear, just truth. As we walked beneath the stars, I said softly, "There was a time I thought betrayal was the end." Grayson gave my hand a light squeeze. "And now?" "Now," I said. "I think it was just the break I needed to take the better path." And so we walked on. No dramatic goodbye to the past. Because the past had been closed with forgiveness, the present was built on trust. And the future? The future was quietly waiting in every honest hand I chose to hold.